I never thought my 70th birthday would be the day I finally broke down. 70 years on this earth, with 12 of those spent as a widow raising two daughters who had become strangers I hardly recognized. But life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. That morning started just like any other. I brewed my coffee, strong black without sugar, and took it to the sunroom of my simple Portland home. Rain gently tapped against the windows, a typical Oregon weather pattern even in May. I thought I'd have a peaceful day, maybe a call from Jennifer or Stephanie later on. Perhaps they would remember this birthday. Perhaps they wouldn't. What I didn't anticipate was the notification that suddenly appeared on my phone as I sipped my coffee. A credit card alert. $4,892 had been charged at the Ma Beach Hotel in Hawaii. I froze, the coffee mug halfway to my lips. I hadn't been to Hawaii since Richard and I visited there for our 30th anniversary 15 years ago, and I certainly hadn't charged nearly $5,000 to any hotel. With trembling fingers, I opened my banking app. There it was, a series of charges, first-class airline tickets, a luxury resort, spa services, all on my emergency credit card, the one I kept hidden in the false bottom of my jewelry box for absolute emergencies only. My daughters knew about that card. I had mentioned it once years ago when Jennifer was going through her divorce, wanting her to know there was a safety net if things became truly desperate. As I absorbed the shocking news, my phone pinged again. This time, it was an Instagram notification. Stephanie had posted a new photo. With shaky hands, I opened the app. There they were, my two daughters, tanned and smiling, raising cocktails against a backdrop of turquoise ocean and swaying palm trees. The caption read, "Sisters Getaway, sometimes you just need to treat yourself. Hawaii, no regrets. Living our best life." Posted 20 minutes ago. While I sat alone on my 70th birthday, they were celebrating in Hawaii using my stolen credit card. I placed my coffee cup down so gently that it made no sound. Inside, something within me felt as hard as concrete closing in around my heart. 12 years of giving, of constantly giving more. 12 years of hearing, "Mom, can I borrow?" Or, "Mom, I just need a little help with this." Or, "Mom, you're not using that money anyway." 12 years of daughters who saw me as a walking ATM rather than a mother who deserved respect. I moved mindlessly toward my bedroom, opened the jewelry box with its cleverly hidden false bottom, only to find it empty. They hadn't even tried to hide their theft. My hands no longer trembled as I picked up my phone and dialed the bank. I needed to report a stolen credit card. My voice was steadier than I expected as I said, "I need to freeze all my accounts immediately." "Certainly, Mrs. Collins," replied the customer service representative. "Can you confirm your identity?" As I answered the security questions, another notification appeared on my screen. This time, it was Jennifer sharing a photo, a selfie in a hotel spa robe with cucumber slices resting on her eyes. It was the first day of a complete rest, a moment of self-care that I truly felt I deserved. The word echoed in my mind as I filled out the fraud report. My daughters thought they deserved a luxury vacation, paid for with my stolen credit card on my birthday, which they hadn't even remembered. "Is there anything else I can assist you with today, Mrs. Collins?" the representative asked. "Actually, yes," I replied, an idea starting to form in my mind. "I'd like to speak with someone about my investment portfolio. It's time I made some changes." By noon, I had blocked all access to my accounts, canceled every credit card, and began a complete overhaul of my financial arrangements. By 1, I had also called my attorney, Gordon, who had helped me quietly build my real estate holdings after Richard passed away. "Barbara, this is theft," Gordon said seriously after I explained what had happened. "We should report it to the police." "Not just yet," I replied. "Let's wait until the hotel contacts them about the payment first. Are you sure about this plan?" Gordon asked with concern. "It will likely cause quite a fuss. I'm 70 years old today," I said quietly. "I have spent 12 years being a doormat for my daughters. I believe I have earned a little of a scene." He sighed. "Happy birthday, by the way. I'm sorry things have turned out this way. Don't be," I answered, surprising myself with a firm voice. I think this might be exactly what we all need. After I finished talking with Gordon, I slowly walked through my house, the home where I raised my girls, where Richard and I built our life together. Pictures decorated the hallway: Jennifer's graduation, Stephanie's wedding, family Christmases when the girls were young, and they still looked at me with love instead of calculation. Or when did it all change? When did I stop being a mother and start becoming just a resource? Maybe it began after Richard passed away. At that time, the girls were in their 30s, both trying to manage careers and relationships. I wanted to help lift some of their burdens amid our shared grief. Small loans grew into larger ones. Occasional requests turned into regular expectations. And somewhere along the way, I didn't notice that I was losing their respect, nor did I realize it was happening. Then my phone startled me from my thoughts. It was an unfamiliar number with a Hawaii area code. Mrs. Collins, a man's voice said politely but professionally. This is Marcus Reeves, the manager of the Monarch Beach Hotel. We are experiencing an issue with the credit card on file for your daughter's stay. I responded calmly, imagining I already knew what he would say. The card has been declined, and we have been unable to process any other payment. Your daughters insist there must be a mistake. There's no mistake, I replied. That credit card was stolen from my home. I reported it as fraud. A pause. I see. Mrs. Collins, are you saying you did not give your daughters permission to use this card? I did not. Nor did I authorize them to book a luxury vacation while forgetting my 70th birthday, which happens to be today. Another pause, this one longer. When he spoke again, his tone had lost its polite, customer-friendly tone. I'm very sorry to hear that, ma'am. And happy birthday. If I may ask, how would you like us to proceed? The unpaid amount is quite large. I closed my eyes, imagining my daughters' faces when they realized their free vacation had just fallen through. Standard hotel policy for unpaid bills, Mr. Reeves, whatever that might be. That would include security and possibly local authorities, Mrs. Collins. I understand, and I fully accept that. After I hung up, I sat in Richard's old armchair, the one I've never been able to part with. What would you do? I whispered to his memory. My practical, principled husband, who had always taught our girls about honesty and responsibility, lessons they seemed to have forgotten, reminded me of the importance of integrity. My phone buzzed once more with a social media notification. Stephanie had posted again a photo of her and Jennifer by the infinity pool, sunglasses on, champagne flutes in hand. It looked like the best day ever. I put my phone down and looked out at the rainy Portland afternoon. A strange sense of calm had taken hold of me, replacing the hurt and anger I had carried. For 12 years, I had supported their behavior, afraid that if I stood up to them, I would lose their love. I had let them diminish me, to forget the woman I was beyond being just their mother or ATM. Now they were about to meet that woman, the teacher who had put herself through night school while raising 2 children, the widow who had used Richard's life insurance and through careful study and smart investments turned it into a real estate portfolio worth millions, the mother who had given everything and received little in return. I picked up my phone and messaged Gordon. It's finished. The hotel is moving forward with their policy for non-payment. What comes next will be decided by my daughters. Then I turned off the phone, brewed a fresh cup of coffee, and sat quietly as the rain tapped softly against the windows. Tomorrow would likely bring upheaval, blame, and maybe even the permanent break of our family ties. But tonight, on my 70th birthday, I granted myself the gift of setting boundaries, and it felt like true freedom. I slept peacefully that night for the first time in many years. No worries about Jennifer's latest financial trouble or Stephanie's emotional games, just calm darkness and the gentle sound of rain on the roof. When I woke, I prepared my usual coffee and paused to reflect with my morning devotional. The words seemed especially meaningful. Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children takes care to discipline them. I had failed in that regard. The part about discipline love. I had been giving and forgiving without setting boundaries, watching my daughters become more entitled with each year. What kind of love was that? Not the kind that helps them grow into their best selves. Taking a deep breath, I turned my phone back on. It immediately flooded with notifications. 12 missed calls from Jennifer, 17 from Stephanie, 34 text messages, ranging from confusion to anger to panic, and most tellingly, 3 voicemails from numbers in Hawaii, presumably the hotel manager and possibly local authorities. I listened to the first one. A voicemail from Jennifer at 6:18 a.m. Pacific time, which meant it was 3:18 a.m. in Hawaii. Mom, what's going on? The hotel says our card was declined, and they're threatening to call the police. Call me back right away. The second from Stephanie came at 6:42 a.m. Mom, this isn't funny. We're stuck here with no way to pay, and the manager says the card was reported stolen. Please fix this now. Jennifer called again at 7:15 a.m., her voice now trembling. Mom, please. They made us leave our room. We're sitting in the lobby with security watching us. They've called the police. Please, Mom, help us. No happy birthday, no explanation for taking my card, no apology or acknowledgement of what they've done. Just constant demands for rescue, as always. My phone rang in my hand. Gordon, Barbara, have you seen the news? He asked without warning. What news? Your daughters have been detained by hotel security in Hawaii. Apparently, they caused quite a scene. Someone recorded it and posted it online. It's going viral. My stomach clenched. How bad? Let's just say Jennifer and Stephanie won't be winning any Guest of the Year awards. The hotel is pursuing legal action for the theft of services, and there is also talk of possible credit card fraud charges, depending on what steps you choose to take. I close my eyes and imagine the scene. My well-groomed daughters, accustomed to getting their way through charm or manipulation, now face real consequences. Send me the link. Moments later, my phone buzzed with Gordon's message. I opened it to see a TikTok video that had already reached 200,000 views and was increasing steadily. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. The footage was shaky, evidently filmed by another hotel guest. Jennifer and Stephanie stood in the luxurious lobby of Mount Aya, still dressed in their designer resort outfits, their faces twisted with outrage. Jennifer was shouting at the calm, unflappable manager. Do you know who we are? Our mother is Barbara Collins. She has accounts worth millions. This is obviously a mistake by the bank. Stephanie, the more dramatic of the two, was openly crying, mascara running down her face. Please, you don't understand. We can't go to jail. We're respectable people. This is all a misunderstanding. The manager stayed professional, but firm. I spoke directly with Mrs. Collins, and she confirmed that you were not authorized to use her credit card. The police are on their way to take statements. The camera showed two uniformed security guards standing nearby, then shifted back to my daughters as Jennifer's composure completely broke down. This is unfair. Call her again. She's probably confused. She's old. The video cut off at that point, but the damage had already been done. Already in the comments, people were speculating about the entitled wealthy daughters who had stolen from their elderly mother. My phone rang again, a number from Hawaii. Mrs. Collins, this is Detective Alana Koha with the Hawaii County Police Department. I am calling about an incident involving your daughters, Jennifer Pierce and Stephanie Collins Ward. Yes, detective, I replied calmly. I was expecting your call. Mrs. Collins, your daughters are currently being held after a complaint from the Monarch Beach Hotel. They used a credit card reported as stolen to charge about $12,000 for services and accommodations. Her tone was polite but caring. They say there was a misunderstanding, that you let them use your card for this trip. That's not true, Detective Kiloha. They took my emergency credit card from a hidden spot in my home, without my knowledge or permission. Yesterday was my 70th birthday, which they ignored. Instead, I found out they were in Hawaii through social media posts. A pause. And do you want to press charges for the theft of your credit card, Mrs. Collins? The question seemed to hang in the air. Part of me, the part that had been taken advantage of for 12 years, almost wanted to say yes. But another part of her, the mother who remembered rocking two small girls to sleep, hesitated. What might happen if I did? The detective explained that credit card theft within a family can be complicated. Given the amount and the circumstances, they could potentially face serious charges. While first-time offenders often receive probation rather than jail time, it would still leave a criminal record. I thought about Jennifer's marketing career and Stephanie's interior design business. A criminal record could ruin their careers. But hadn't that been their choice when they stole from me? I needed time to think, I said at last. However, no matter what I decided about pressing charges, I would not pay for their hotel room or their return flights. Understood, the detective responded. They will need to handle the hotel bills themselves and arrange their own transportation home. Would you like to talk to them? I took a deep breath. Not right now. Please tell them I will reach out when I am ready. After I hung up, I remained still, gazing at the clearing sky. The storm had moved on, leaving Portland shimmering and feeling fresh. But inside my heart, the storm was just beginning. The doorbell suddenly rang, startling me from my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my neighbor Grace stood there holding a small cake with a single candle. "Happy belated birthday," she said kindly with a warm smile. I remembered it was yesterday, but I didn't want to intrude. I thought you might be celebrating with your girls. Her simple act of kindness touched me deeply. Tears filled my eyes as I invited her inside and explained what had happened. Grace, a retired nurse and a widow herself, listened patiently without judging. "Oh, Barbara," she sighed when I finished. "What a terrible situation they've put you in," she said softly. I admitted, I don't know what to do. Part of me wants them to face real consequences this time, but they are still my daughters. Grace set down her teacup. "You know, my Frank used to say something that stayed with me. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is allow people to face the results of the choices they've made." I smiled with a touch of sadness. Richard would have said something similar. He was always very focused on taking responsibility. What would he advise now? I closed my eyes and pictured Richard's face, his gentle eyes that could turn firm when principles were at stake. He would say that true love means wanting what's best for someone in the long run, not just what's easiest for them today. Grace nodded. "And what's truly best for Jennifer and Stephanie? Another rescue? Or finally realizing that actions have consequences?" As she left an hour later, I felt a little more at peace. I called Gordon and explained my decision, then sent detailed instructions to my financial team via email. Finally, I sent a message to Detective Chloa. "I've made my choice. Please let my daughters know I will talk to them when they come back to Portland. They would now have to face their current situation on their own." Yeah, my phone immediately flooded with calls and texts from both daughters. I silenced it, tucked it away in a drawer, and stepped outside into my garden. The roses Richard had planted needed pruning, cutting back the dead branches to make room for new growth. As I carefully removed what was no longer helpful to the plant, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't experienced in many years. Sometimes love demands tough choices. Sometimes growth comes through pain. My daughters were about to learn that lesson, and perhaps at 70, I was finally understanding it myself. Several days went by before I heard the sound of car doors closing in my driveway. I had been expecting them, expecting. Gordon had told me that Jennifer and Stephanie had booked economy flights back to Portland after spending a night in a budget motel near the Kona airport. They had to borrow money from Jennifer's ex-husband just to afford that. I stayed seated in Richard's armchair, my hands resting calmly on my lap as the doorbell rang and was quickly followed by loud, angry knocking. "Mom, open the door. We know you're inside," Jennifer's sharp voice declared with frustration. I took my time getting up and walking toward the door. When I finally opened it, I was almost taken aback. My usually well-groomed daughters looked completely disheveled. Their designer outfits were wrinkled, their hair was unwashed, and dark circles highlighted their tired, bloodshot eyes. Stephanie's face showed tears and was blotchy. "How could you do this to us?" Jennifer demanded, pushing past me into the hall. They followed, Stephanie dragging a luxury suitcase with a wheel that was broken. It was embarrassing. They treated us like criminals. I quietly closed the door and faced them. "Please lower your voices. If you want to speak calmly, we can sit in the living room." "Civilized?" Jennifer's voice rose even higher. "You had us detained by security. There are videos of us all over the internet. My boss called me this morning. My clients are seeing this and mine," Stephanie added. "My phone is bursting with messages. My reputation is shattered." I looked at them steadily. "Are you finished?" Something in my tone, more confident than they had ever heard, made both of them pause. "Sit down," I said, gesturing toward the sofa. To my surprise, they obeyed, sitting carefully on the edge of my floral couch like students quote misbehaving. I remained standing. "Yesterday was my 70th birthday," I began. "Mom, we were going to call," Stephanie started. I cut her off. "I am speaking." I said softly but firmly. Yesterday was my 70th birthday. I spent it alone, discovering that my daughters had taken my emergency credit card to finance a luxurious holiday they clearly couldn't afford. We didn't steal, Jennifer insisted. Did you ask permission to take my card from its hiding place? I asked. She fell silent. Did you intend to replace the money before I noticed? Stephanie looked down at the floor. Then yes, you stole from me on my birthday, and afterward you posted photos of yourselves enjoying the results of that theft on social media for me to see. We plan to pay you back, Jennifer mumbled. With what money? I asked. Jennifer, you've borrowed more than $80,000 from me over the past 5 years. Stephanie, your debt is around $63,000. Neither of you has repaid a single dollar. Your credit cards are all maxed out. You live beyond your means while treating me as your personal bank. Their surprised expressions told me everything. They had no idea I'd been carefully keeping track. How do you know about our credit cards? Stephanie asked. Because I'm not the forgetful old woman you seem to think I am, I replied. I've been monitoring your financial situations closely every time you've asked for money. I am aware of Jennifer's online gambling problem and Stephanie's secret apartment in Seattle, where she meets her married boyfriend. Both women believe these were well-guarded secrets. Mom, you don't understand, Jennifer began, her voice softening into the coaxing tone she'd used since childhood when she was in trouble. We've been under so much stress. We just needed a break. And I needed daughters who remembered my birthday. I interrupted her. I needed daughters who respected me enough not to steal from me. I needed daughters who valued me as more than an ATM. Tears welled up in Stephanie's eyes, always the more emotional one. She had used her tears as a weapon for years. We do value you, Mom. We love you. This was just a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to return a borrowed sweater, I replied. This was a deliberate choice to take what wasn't yours, and now you're facing the consequences of that choice. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. What does that really mean? I walked over to my desk, picked up 3 folders, and handed one to each daughter while keeping the third. It means there are changes, starting now. They looked at the folders with suspicion. Then their faces changed to shock as they read the documents inside. You're cutting us off, Jennifer's voice jangled with panic. You can't do this. I responded calmly, I already have. All automatic payments to your accounts have been stopped. The trust fund distributions you've depended on are now frozen. I've also changed my will and estate plans. And yes, I have the right to do this. It's my money. But the question is, how will we pay our mortgages and car loans? Stephanie looked overwhelmed. The same way other adults manage, using their earned income. I opened my own folder, which brings me to an important point. If you want to regain your place in my will and financial arrangements, there are certain conditions. Conditions? Jennifer asked, astonished. First, both of you will enroll in financial counseling. I have provided details about 3 trustworthy advisors, and I pointed to a page in their folders for your reference. Second, you will repay every cent you have borrowed from me over the past 12 years. I have included a detailed record of all the transactions. Stephanie protested. That's impossible. We don't have that kind of money, she added. I continued calmly. Then you will need to set up payment plans. Third, each of you will commit to completing 50 hours of community service working with elderly victims of financial abuse. I provided information about organizations that can fit into your schedules. Jennifer stood up suddenly, her face red with anger. This is ridiculous, she said. We only made one mistake, just one. I raised an eyebrow. Would you like me to list every emergency loan, every manipulation, every time you've treated me more like a resource than your mother? Because I have those records as well. She sank back onto the sofa, silent. Fourth, I continued, you will attend weekly family therapy sessions with me for at least 6 months. I have already spoken with Dr. Matthews, who specializes in adult family dynamics. Mom, Stephanie pleaded, be reasonable. We can't possibly do all this. You can, you just don't want to. I close my folder, which brings me to my final point. These conditions are non-negotiable. Meet them and we can start working on rebuilding our relationship. Refuse, and you will remain permanently cut off financially. Jennifer's expression hardened. And if we go to the media, Tell them how you abandoned us in Hawaii, how you're financially abusing us now. I had expected this, Jennifer's ultimate weapon, the threat of public exposure. I looked steadily into her eyes. Then I would be forced to release the complete financial record showing how you have systematically taken advantage of me for years, along with proof of how your trip to Hawaii was paid for. I don't think that's a court of public opinion you want to face, Jennifer. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Stephanie broke it with a sob. I don't understand. You've always helped us before. You've never been like this. No, I said softly, I haven't. And that was my mistake. One I am now correcting. I stood up, indicating that our conversation was over. You have 1 week to decide if you are willing to meet my conditions. Until then, I believe it's best if we don't communicate. You're kicking us out? Jennifer looked surprised. Where are we supposed to go? To your homes, I suppose. The ones I've been helping you pay for. I walked to the door and opened it. I'll expect your decision next Friday. They gathered their belongings in silence, stunned. As they passed me at the door, Stephanie paused, her face streaked with tears. Did you ever really love us, Mom? She asked softly. The question hit me like a physical blow. Even in her attempt to influence, I could see there was genuine pain behind her words that I couldn't ignore. I have always loved you both, I said softly. Enough to finally stop enabling behaviors that were hurting you. That's what true love sometimes requires. After they left, I sank into Richard's chair, feeling emotionally exhausted. On the side table was the last photo taken of him before the cancer took over. Strong, principled Richard, with his kind eyes and determined expression. I asked his image, was I too harsh or not harsh enough? Of course, no answer came. But as I sat quietly in the house, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. For the first time since Richard's passing, I had stood confidently in my own truth. Whether my daughters could accept it still remained to be seen. My phone buzzed with a message from Gordon. How did it go? I responded simply, the ball is in their court now. I set my phone aside, picked up my novel, and took some time to focus on my own needs, something I hadn't done in a very long while. For 3 days, there was silence. No phone calls, no texts, and no dramatic visits to my door. My daughters were either planning their next steps or quietly working through what had happened. In that quiet, I found space to breathe and to remember who I was beyond being a mother and a financial safety net. I spent one whole day in my garden, caring for the roses Richard had planted and the vegetable beds I had added after his passing. There was a deep sense of satisfaction in having my hands in the earth, helping plants grow while removing what shouldn't be there. By evening, my back ached pleasantly, a reminder that at 70 I was still capable and strong. On the fourth day, Grace visited with fresh scones and a look of concern. She said, "The video of your daughters is all over the local news now," as I poured tea. Channel 8 aired a segment about entitled adult children, and although they didn't name anyone explicitly, the blurred footage clearly showed Jennifer and Stephanie. I let out a sigh. I had suspected as much. How are you holding up? I thought about the question carefully. Surprisingly, I was doing better than I had expected. There's a certain comfort in finally drawing a clear line. Grace nodded in understanding. Yesterday at Whole Foods, I saw Stephanie. She tried to avoid eye contact, but I noticed she looked different. Less refined, more like a real person somehow. Being human is good, I whispered to myself. Being human means feeling genuine emotions and facing uncomfortable truths. She was buying ramen noodles and discounted bread, Grace added with a small smile of satisfaction. Not her usual choice of champagne or fancy food. Despite everything, I felt a little maternal worry. They will be okay. Both girls have solid incomes after all. They just tend to spend more than they should because someone has always been there to bail them out. Grace pointed out that this gives them a chance to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. You're giving them the opportunity to grow and develop their independence, Barbara? It's a gift, even if they don't realize it yet. After Grace left, I finally looked at my email again for the first time in several days. Among the usual newsletters and alerts was a message from Dr. Matthews, the family therapist I had reached out to. Mrs. Collins, I wanted to inform you that your daughter Jennifer called to ask about my services and whether I was available. She didn't set up an appointment, but she seemed to be gathering information. I thought this might be relevant to your family situation. Yours, Dr. Matthews. It may seem like a small step, but it's meaningful. Jennifer, my proud, controlling firstborn, was at least checking into one of my conditions. That afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find a small bouquet of daisies and carnations with a card that simply said, "I'm sorry, Stephanie." No long explanations, no emotional pleas about being devastated or ruined. Just two words that, in their simplicity, carried more weight than her usual emotional outpourings. I placed the flowers on my kitchen table, gently touching the petals, perhaps the start of something. As I was preparing dinner, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Collins, this is Martin Reynolds from KPTV News. We're working on a segment about financial abuse of elderly parents, and your daughter's situation in Hawaii has come to our notice. We'd like to hear your side of the story." My heart began to race. This was exactly what I had hoped to avoid, public exposure that could humiliate all of us. "Mr. Reynolds, I appreciate your interest, but I have no comment. This is a private family matter. Our viewers might understand better if they knew how you're standing up for yourself." He pressed, suggesting I could help other parents facing similar situations. That thought made me hesitate. Many other parents were quietly being taken advantage of by adult children who should have been independent by then. "I understand the potential benefits," I spoke carefully. "However, I won't be discussing my daughter specifically. If you are interested in a general conversation about setting healthy financial boundaries with adult children, I might consider it on the condition that my family's privacy is respected." He responded, sounding surprised by my suggestion, saying, "Oh, if that could work. Would you be comfortable sharing your professional background as part of the segment?" I hesitated. My real estate investments had always been kept private, known only to Gordon and my financial team. But perhaps it was time to fully embrace who I had become. I decided yes. I explained, "I'm a retired teacher who built a successful real estate investment portfolio that's relevant to this topic." We then arranged a time for the interview. And after hanging up, I felt a strange mix of worry and relief. For many years, I had played down my financial skills, so my daughters saw me simply as their aging mother who needed their help. Stepping into the public eye as a successful businesswoman would forever change that view. That evening, as I got ready for bed, my phone beeped with a message from Jennifer. I saw that Stephanie had sent flowers. That's typical. She always tries to seem like the caring daughter. I had made an appointment with the financial counselor you recommended, Tuesday at 2 p.m. No apology, but action. Probably more meaningful coming from Jennifer. Anyway, I replied with a simple, "I'm glad to hear it. Thank you for letting me know." Three dots appeared as she typed back, then disappeared, only to reappear again. Finally, she admitted that the Hawaii trip was a mistake. "We shouldn't have used your card." Coming from Jennifer, that was almost like throwing herself on the ground in remorse. I waited, sensing there was more to come. The dots reappeared. "Did you truly change your will?" And there it was, the financial worry behind her hesitant apology. I thought about how to reply, then wrote, "Yes, all previous arrangements have been modified based on your decisions regarding the conditions I outlined." A long pause followed before her response. "I'll see the financial counselor on Tuesday." It was progress, even if driven by self-interest, but with Jennifer, I'd take whatever I could get. The next morning, I met with Gordon to prepare for the upcoming interview. As we went over points about financial independence and setting healthy boundaries, he looked at me with some curiosity. "You seem different, Barbara. Stronger." I smiled. "I do feel different. Like I finally stepped into myself after years of shrinking to meet others' expectations." He nodded. "It suits you. Richard would be proud." The mention of my late husband brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I wished he could see this. He always told me I was too gentle with the girls. Gordon nodded. He was right, but you're changing your approach now, and that's what matters. As I drove home, I passed Jennifer's stylish downtown condo and felt a quick surge of concern. Was I being too strict? Should I have warned them more before cutting off financial support? But then I remembered their faces in that viral video titled, Incredible that Actions Might Have Consequences. That they were in their 40s, for heaven's sake. If not now, when would they learn to stand on their own feet? My phone rang through the car speaker. Stephanie, Mom. Her voice was quieter than usual, lacking its usual dramatic flair. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I'm driving, but I can listen. I've been thinking about everything you said. She paused. You're right about all of it. The way we've treated you, the money, even forgetting your birthday, it's unforgivable. I waited, allowing her to continue without interrupting. I've scheduled a meeting with that financial counselor, and I've also looked into the community service program. There's a senior center downtown that's looking for volunteers. Her voice caught slightly, and I've been thinking about what you mentioned, that I should be appreciated as more than just an ATM. I realize now I hadn't fully appreciated how much we've taken you for granted until everything came to a halt. Thank you for sharing this with me, Stephanie. I'm truly sorry, Mom. The words rushed out before I thought, not just for Hawaii, but for all these years of treating you like you existed mainly to fix our problems. I want to do better. For the first time since all this happened, I felt a real warmth toward my daughter. Not the automatic maternal love I've always had, but a genuine appreciation for her willingness to reflect and change. That means a lot to me, I said softly. This isn't about punishing anyone, Stephanie. It's about building healthier relationships for all of us. I know, she replied. Jennifer's having a harder time with it. She feels angry and a bit ashamed. But I believe she'll come around in her own time. I agreed with her. Everyone heals and understands things in their own way. After we lost contact, I encouraged myself to smile. The path ahead would be difficult. Years of habits can't be changed overnight, but for the first time in many years, I saw a real chance for honest connection with my daughters, based on mutual respect rather than money or dependence. Later that evening, I sat at my desk and opened the wooden box where I kept Richard's letters. On our wedding day, he had given me a note to read if I ever faced tough times. I had turned to that note many times after he passed away, but not for a long while now. His handwriting, confident and bold, jumped from the old yellowed paper. My dearest Barbara, it read, if you're reading this, you're going through something that feels impossible. Remember this. You are stronger than any situation. You have a core of steel beneath your gentle heart. Trust yourself. Stand tall. I believe in you. I always have. I always will. All my love, Richard. I ran my finger over his signature, feeling his presence as clearly as if he were sitting right beside me. I finally decided to do it, I whispered, standing steady. Better late than never, I thought. In the quiet of my study, I could almost hear his warm, approving laugh. The weeks that followed brought unexpected changes. I could never have imagined what was to come. My simple interview about the news turned into a series of media appearances, including 3 radio shows, a podcast on women's financial independence, and even a segment on a national morning broadcast filmed through Zoom from my living room. Boundary Barbara had touched a nerve in the culture. Emails poured in from women sharing similar stories, mothers who had supported adult children financially for many years, widows discovering their own strength after a loss, and grandmothers worried that setting boundaries might harm their family relationships. You've tapped into something truly important, Gordon said during one of our weekly meetings. There's a whole generation of women who were raised to put everyone else first, and now they are beginning to realize they deserve more. The publisher he mentioned was very interested in securing a book deal, a practical guide for women over 60 to regain their financial and personal independence. The advance they offered was so generous it made me double take. This is beyond my expertise, Gordon admitted. You should think about hiring a literary agent. I felt overwhelmed by the scale of it all. At 70, I was suddenly starting a career I never imagined possible. Throughout, I held firm to my conditions for Jennifer and Stephanie. Both of them were seeing a financial counselor regularly. Stephanie had just completed her first 10 hours volunteering at the senior center and, to my surprise, said she found the work fulfilling. Jennifer had reluctantly attended 2 sessions with Dr. Matthews, though she refused to talk about what had happened there. Our weekly family therapy sessions were initially very tense. Jennifer arrived with her arms crossed and responded in a clipped manner, while Stephanie swung between sincere remorse and occasional slipping back into the victim role. I held firm boundaries, but also acknowledged my own part in allowing their behavior to continue for years. During our third session, Dr. Matthews pointed out that financial dynamics in families are rarely one sided. Barbara, you gained something from this arrangement too, or it wouldn't have lasted so long. The comment stung, but I saw that it was true. I admitted that I wanted their love. I was afraid of being alone or feeling unimportant to them. The financial support gave me a secure place in their lives, a role that came with a significant cost, Dr. Matthews observed. And to us, Stephanie added, unexpectedly, we never had to grow up. Not really. I always had my mother to turn to. Jennifer stayed quiet, but I saw a brief flash of understanding in her eyes. By our fifth session, small progress was beginning to show. Jennifer actually admitted that stealing my credit card had been wrong, not just misguided or poorly timed, but truly wrong. Stephanie confessed she had developed a victim mentality to avoid taking responsibility for her actions. I also faced my own enabling behaviors without justifying theirs. During one especially productive session, I've been thinking about Dad a lot, Jennifer said, about how very different he was with money. He never simply handed us cash when we asked. Your father believed that you should earn what you get. I agreed. I lost sight of that after he passed away. I thought giving you everything would keep you close. Instead, it showed us you were someone to use rather than respect, Stephanie said quietly. I'm not proud of the person I became in that dynamic. These moments of insight were often interrupted by setbacks. Jennifer missed a therapy session without giving any reason. One night, Stephanie called in tears over a bounced check, pleading for a small loan before she suddenly stopped herself mid-sentence. I also received a harsh message from Jennifer after her ex-husband mentioned he had seen me on television. Gradually, little by little, our relationships were changing. Meanwhile, my unexpected public presence kept growing. I started a simple website with Gordon's help, providing resources for women in similar situations. A nearby community college invited me to teach a workshop on financial literacy for seniors. The book deal was finalized, but the deadline for the manuscript was tight. Sometimes the schedule felt very demanding. I was still a woman of 70, enjoying my quiet routines, morning coffee with devotional readings, afternoons in the garden, and evenings spent with a good book. My days now included media appearances, manuscript consultations, and more emails asking for advice. You don't have to say yes to everything, Grace told me over tea one afternoon. This isn't about becoming famous, it's about sharing the wisdom you've gained through experience. Her advice came at the right moment. I started setting boundaries, not only with my daughters, but also regarding the increasing demands on my time. I even turned down an offer to appear on a reality TV show. The very thought made me laugh out loud and helped me focus on public engagements that allowed me to give meaningful advice rather than sensationalize my story. 6 weeks after the Hawaii incident, I came home from a meeting with my new literary agent to find Jennifer's car parked in my driveway. This wasn't one of our regular therapy visits, and she hadn't called beforehand. It was a breach of the new boundaries we had put in place. I saw her sitting on my porch swing, holding an envelope in her hands. I should have called, she said immediately, acknowledging she had crossed a boundary. I'm sorry. This was something I felt was too important to send as a text. Curious, I sat beside her. What is it? She handed me the envelope. My first repayment. It's not a large amount, 5,000, but it's a start. I opened it to find a cashier's check inside. Jennifer, I'm impressed. How did you manage this? I asked. She admitted. I sold my Peloton and some designer bags. I've also taken on some freelance projects outside my usual work. The financial counselor helped me come up with a repayment plan that is actually doable. The effort involved, not just financially, but also emotionally, was quite a challenge. Jennifer, who usually defined herself by status symbols and appearances, had willingly sold luxury items to make amends. Thank you, I said simply. This means a lot, she nodded, looking out at the garden instead of at me. I saw you on that morning show. You were really good, articulate, and strong. Coming from Jennifer, that meant a lot. This was truly a great compliment. Dr. Matthews has been helping me understand some things, she continued, still avoiding eye contact, about why I've been so upset about your new public image. It's not just about feeling embarrassed or concerned about how it might impact my reputation. What is it really about? I asked softly. She hesitated before admitting, I think I've been feeling jealous. The word seemed hard for her to say. All these people suddenly see Mom Barbara as a wise, accomplished woman with important insights, and I've spent years dismissing you, treating you as if you were beneath me in some way. It's uncomfortable to realize how mistaken I've been. Her honest confession moved me deeply. We've all made mistakes, Jennifer. What truly counts is where we choose to go from here. That's what Dr. Matthews also emphasizes. Finally, she turned to look at me. I won't pretend this is easy for me. I still struggle with the financial limits, the therapy sessions, and everything else, but I am trying. I understand. And I acknowledge that. I'm proud of you for that. She blinked quickly, fighting back tears. Jennifer had always disliked crying, seeing it as a sign of weakness. The truth is, Mom, I actually need your help with something. It's not money, she added quickly. It's advice. What kind of advice? My company is expanding into financial literacy programs for corporate clients, given your new expertise in this field. She hesitated. I thought maybe you could serve as a consultant on developing the curriculum, paid for your professional input, not just as my mother doing me a favor. This was a significant change. Jennifer saw me as someone with valuable knowledge, looking for a professional relationship rather than a maternal rescue. It felt like the first fragile bridge spanning the gap that had grown between us. I would be glad to talk about it, I said carefully, though my schedule has become quite busy lately. A small smile appeared on her lips. So I've heard Boundary Barbara is in high demand. I groaned at the nickname. Please don't call me that. Too late. Stephanie and I had already ordered you a coffee mug, with it printed on the side, Happy Belated Birthday. The gesture, partly a joke and partly a kind gesture, made me laugh despite myself. Thank you. I felt a bit cautious but hopeful as Jennifer left, promising to email me details about the potential consulting work. The road ahead with my daughters would never be easy or straightforward, but for the first time in years, it seemed we were at least moving in the same direction. That evening, I sat at my desk in the study, working on my book outline. The tentative title, The Invisible Woman's Revolution, Reclaiming Your Power, after 60, felt both a little bold and strangely fitting. Who was I to write such a book? And yet, who else could understand its core journey better than someone who had lived through it? My phone suddenly chimed with a message from Stephanie. Just finished my shift at the senior center. I met a woman who saw you on TV and quotes Boundary Barbara as if it were scripture. It was a bit strange to hear my mom quoted, but at the same time, it felt pretty special. I'm now on my way to financial counseling. Here's a quick update. I've managed to stick to my budget for 3 weeks in a row. I smiled when I read the message, appreciating both the update and the more relaxed, healthier tone of our conversations. There were no exaggerations, no tricks, just honest sharing. As I went back to my outline, I realized I was not only working on a book, but also creating a legacy. The woman I became at 70 and the woman I am still becoming might help others discover their own strengths sooner than I did. Richard would have truly appreciated that. He always believed I had more to give the world than I allowed myself. Better late than never, right? I whispered his name, feeling his presence as clearly as if he were sitting right beside me. The night was calm, my home was quiet. Outside, spring was giving way to early summer, with new growth visible in my garden. Inside, I was experiencing my own unexpected blooming, a renaissance at 70 that I never saw coming. For the first time in many years, I genuinely looked forward to wondering what tomorrow might bring. 3 months after the Hawaii incident, my world had changed in ways I still found hard to fully understand. The manuscript for my book was making steady progress. I had led 2 community college workshops on financial literacy for women over 60, with a third scheduled for the next month. My website was receiving hundreds of visitors each day, all seeking advice on setting healthy boundaries with adult children. Most surprising of all, Jennifer's consulting work had grown into a real professional partnership. Her marketing firm was now creating financial wellness programs for corporate clients. And my advice was being truly appreciated, not as her mother, but as Barbara Collins, a specialist in financial independence. Neither of us missed the irony. If someone had told me 6 months ago that I would be working closely with my mother in a professional capacity, I would have thought they were joking, Jennifer said during one of our planning sessions. But here we are. Life often surprises us, I agreed, looking over the presentation material she had prepared. Our personal relationship was still a work in progress. Jennifer had been attending therapy and financial counseling as needed, making regular payments toward her debt to me, and keeping appropriate boundaries in our interactions. Still, there was a sense of guardedness between us, a caution that stemmed from years of unhealthy patterns that weren't easy to change. With Stephanie, the change felt more complete. She had taken on her volunteer work at the senior center with surprising enthusiasm, even organizing a financial literacy workshop for the residents using materials from my website. These women have incredible stories, Mom, she told me one morning over coffee. One was a woman who only shared her writing passion with her family very late in life, at the age of 90. Another began a thriving business at 65 after her husband passed away. They are truly inspiring, but many struggle financially because they never learned how to handle money. The enthusiasm in her voice was fresh and genuine. Stephanie was discovering a sense of purpose beyond her own needs and wishes. The director asked if I might consider talking to the residents, adding hesitantly, "No pressure, of course. I understand how busy you've become." "I would be happy to do it," I responded, truly touched by her thoughtfulness about my schedule. This was another new step in our relationship. As I got ready for that presentation the following week, going through my materials in the study, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Collins, this is Diane Lell from Horizon Publishing. I'm calling about your upcoming book." My stomach clenched. Gordon had warned me that publishers sometimes change their plans unexpectedly. "Yes, what can I do for you?" "I have taken over as your editor since Miranda went on maternity leave earlier than expected. I've gone through your manuscript draft, and I want to talk to you about a big opportunity." I relaxed a little as I spoke. "What kind of opportunity?" "The Good Morning America is preparing a special segment on women over 60 who are reinventing themselves. They are interested in sharing your story and your book. This would mean speeding up our publishing schedule, but the exposure could be enormous." The idea was both exciting and a bit scary. Local media attention was one thing, but national television was a whole different level. I asked when this might happen, trying to sound calmer than I felt. "In 3 weeks, they would fly you to New York. The segment would air the week before your book is released." My mind hurried to keep up with the details. I said I needed to talk it over with my family and my agent before making a decision. "Of course," Diane replied smoothly. "But if possible, we would need your answer by tomorrow. These opportunities come quickly." After I hung up, I sat still, reflecting on how completely my life had transformed. From an unnoticed mother and grandmother to a potential guest on national television, all because I finally took a stand after decades of going along with others. I reached out to Gordon, who was full of enthusiasm and support. "This is exactly the platform your message needs, Barbara," he said. "The publisher will take care of all the arrangements. All you have to do is be yourself." Then I texted both daughters, asking if they could meet me for dinner that evening if it was possible. To my surprise, both responded immediately and agreed. The restaurant I picked was roughly halfway between our homes. It wasn't too expensive to stretch my daughter's new budget, but still a nice place for an important talk. I arrived early and watched through the window as they approached from different directions. They met on the sidewalk with a quick, slightly awkward hug before coming inside. "Everything okay, Mom?" Stephanie asked as they sat across from me. "Your text sounded serious." I explained about the Good Morning America offer, watching their reactions carefully. Stephanie's eyes widened with excitement while Jennifer's expression stayed neutral. "That's amazing," Stephanie exclaimed. "National television. You'll reach so many people." Jennifer took a slow sip of water. "It's definitely a big opportunity. How do you feel about it?" The question caught me off guard. Jennifer asking about my feelings instead of just reacting herself. It was another small sign of growth. Honestly, I admitted I'm terrified, but I also feel called in a way. The responses I've gotten from women in similar situations have been so strong. If sharing my story helps others find their voice sooner than I did, that feels worthwhile. Jennifer nodded slowly. And how would you explain what happened with us, with the Hawaii situation? The question hit right at the core of the matter. I've been careful in all my public remarks to focus on principles rather than specific details about our family, I told her. I plan to stick to that approach. The Hawaii incident is what started everything, Jennifer pressed on. It's what caused you to set boundaries with Barbara. They'll want to hear that story. She wasn't wrong. The producer would definitely push for the most dramatic parts of my story. I won't share anything that could identify or embarrass either of you, I promised. This isn't about exposing our family struggles in public. It's about helping other women find their inner strength. Stephanie reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I trust you, Mom. And honestly, I've earned whatever embarrassment might come my way. What we did was wrong. Jennifer sighed. I agree, though it's not easy to admit. She straightened her shoulders. If you want to do this, you should. Just please think carefully about how you present things. The maturity they showed in their responses moved me deeply. 3 months ago, Jennifer would have threatened legal action to keep me from speaking openly. Stephanie would have burst into tears, feeling humiliated. Now they were considering my opportunity and offering thoughtful, measured support. Thank you both, I said sincerely. This means more than you realize. So you'll do it? Stephanie asked. I nodded, my decision becoming clear. Yes, I think I will. As we ate dinner, the conversation shifted to other topics. Stephanie's volunteer work, Jennifer's corporate project, and my upcoming talk at the senior center. For perhaps the first time in adulthood, we spoke as three women with separate lives and interests, not just as mother and daughters caught in the old patterns of giving and taking. After dinner, as we headed to our cars, Jennifer slowly fell back slightly. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. How did you know? She looked unexpectedly vulnerable in the gentle evening light. How did you know when it was time to finally say enough to change everything? I thought about the question deeply. I didn't have a precise answer. There was just a moment looking at those Hawaii photos on my 70th birthday when something inside me shifted. All the pain and dismissals I had carried suddenly became too much to hold anymore. I smiled softly. I wish I could say it was a carefully planned decision, but honestly, it felt more like a dam breaking. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. I've been reflecting a lot in therapy about why it took such a dramatic moment for things to change. She paused. I find it hard to say this, but I'm sorry we pushed you to that breaking point. The simple apology, given without conditions or expectations, felt like a gift. Thank you, Jennifer. That truly means a lot to me. As they drove away, I stayed in the parking lot watching their taillights fade in opposite directions. The evening had affirmed my choice. If my journey from feeling like a doormat to gaining self-respect could inspire other women to find their voice, then appearing on Good Morning America was a risk I was willing to take. The next few weeks flew by in a rush of preparation. My publisher arranged media training sessions through Zoom. My manuscript received final revisions. Gordon helped me set clear boundaries with the television producers, ensuring I knew what I would and wouldn't discuss about my family. The day before my flight to New York, I visited the senior center where Stephanie volunteers. The presentation room was packed beyond capacity. Residents, staff, and even some family members gathered closely to hear Boundary Barbara speak. As I offered practical advice on maintaining financial independence after 60, I noticed Stephanie standing at the back of the room, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite understand. When the Q&A session began, an elderly woman in the front row raised her hand. I've been following your story, Mrs. Collins, she said, her voice trembling slightly. My question isn't about money, it's about forgiveness. How did you manage to forgive your daughters after what they did? The room grew quiet. I looked at Stephanie, whose face had turned very red. Forgiveness, I explained carefully, is a process, not a single event. For me, it meant seeing real change, not just hearing apologies. My daughters have worked hard to rebuild trust through consistent actions, not simply words. I paused, making eye contact with Stephanie, and added, I've also had to forgive myself for enabling some behaviors that weren't healthy for any of us. The woman nodded, with tears in her eyes. My son hasn't spoken to me in 5 years because I finally stopped paying his mortgage. Sometimes I wonder if standing up for myself was worth losing him. You didn't lose him, I answered softly. You have let go of the illusion that a relationship is truly about financial dependence rather than genuine connection. Real relationships can handle boundaries. In fact, healthy relationships need boundaries to flourish. After the presentation, as residents queued up to speak with me privately, I saw Stephanie engaged in a deep conversation with the woman who had asked about forgiveness. They talked intently for several minutes before hugging each other. Later on our way to the cars, I asked about their discussion. Her son had completely cut her out of his life when she stopped supporting him financially. Stephanie explained, she's been blaming herself, thinking she made the wrong decision. I shared with her our journey, how setting boundaries with mom turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to us, even though we didn't see it that way at first. You shared our story. I was surprised by her honesty. Stephanie nodded. It was the real story, not the polished version. Jennifer and I took your credit card without permission and was surprised when you got upset about it. We then spent 3 months in therapy and financial counseling, learning how to be independent and responsible. It has been the most challenging yet the most meaningful effort in our adult lives. Her honesty in acknowledging the uncomfortable truth moved me deeply. That was brave. It was truthful, she said. She also realized that sometimes the road to healing isn't smooth or easy. She hopes her son might eventually come around just as we did, once he finds his own way. As we reached our cars, Stephanie unexpectedly gave me a warm hug. I am proud of you, Mom, for New York, for the book, for everything. She pulled back and looked serious, but mainly grateful, for finally learning a lesson we should have understood years ago. That night, as I packed for New York, I thought about how completely my life had changed over just 3 months. From a long forgotten 70th birthday to appearing on national television, from allowing unhealthy relationships to setting respectful boundaries, from feeling invisible to finding my voice. The path had not been easy, and it was certainly not finished. But as I stood in my bedroom, my suitcase open on the bed that once felt too empty after Richard's passing, I sensed a deep feeling of correctness and purpose. That certainly wasn't part of our retirement plans, I said aloud, thinking of Richard's memory. But I believe you wanted me to prove something. I felt his quiet reply, not spoken but understood. It came in the quiet confidence that I was exactly where I needed to be, doing what I was meant to do. At 70 years old, I realized that my true life was just beginning. Outside the window, New York City stretched out in all its splendor, a shining patchwork of lights against the evening sky. My publisher had booked me into a hotel in Midtown, sleek and modern, so different from my cozy Portland home, which suddenly seemed small and simple by comparison. Tomorrow morning, I will appear on national television to talk about my book and the journey that inspired it. The thought still felt strange to me. My phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer confirming that a car would pick me up at 5:30 a.m. and that I should be ready for hair and makeup at the studio by 6:15. I took a deep breath. I could do this. Jennifer had surprised me by offering to coordinate with the television producers, using her marketing skills to make sure I was well prepared. It's what I do professionally, Mom, she explained. I might as well use these skills to help you instead of just my clients. Her support felt like another step forward in our healing relationship, Jennifer using her talents to help rather than manipulate. I simply replied, "Thank you, all set here." After that, I returned to reviewing the talking points my publisher had provided. The segment would last about 7 minutes, a brief moment in real time, but feeling like an eternity beneath bright studio lights, with millions watching. The hotel phone rang, and the concierge announced a delivery. Soon after, there was a tap at my door, and a bellhop appeared with a small gift bag. "Special delivery for Mrs. Collins," he said. Inside the bag was a simple silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny ladder. The note read, "For the woman who's showing others how to climb. We're proud of you. Love, S&J." The kindness behind the gesture brought unexpected tears to my eyes. 3 months earlier, my daughters had stolen my credit card and left me alone on my birthday. Today, they were sending symbolic gifts to show their support before my television appearance. The change felt almost miraculous. Still, I knew it had been earned through difficult and honest work by all of us. I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, finding comfort in this small, tangible link to home. As I faced the most public moment of my life, sleep proved elusive that night. I kept switching between reviewing my talking points and trying meditation techniques I had learned from a YouTube video Stephanie had recommended. By the time my alarm rang at 4:45 a.m., I felt both worn out and surprisingly alert. The morning moved quickly. Ride to the studio, the busy backstage atmosphere at the television station, and then sitting in the makeup chair, where a young woman applied more product to my face than I had used in the past 10 years combined. She commented, "You have amazing bone structure," as she blended a shimmery color across my cheekbones. I responded with a thank you, trying not to flinch when she used an eyelash curler so close to my eye that it made me nervous. Though honestly, most of my good looks probably come from my genetics and the effects of gravity over the years. She smiled and said, "Well, whatever it is, you're looking great. My grandmother watches you online, by the way. She calls you her financial fairy godmother." The comment took me by surprise. Watching your videos online, she explains that you've helped her stand up to my uncle, who has been draining her resources for years. She applied a final touch of lipstick. "So thank you for that. She seems happier now." Before I could say anything, a production assistant approached with a clipboard. "Mrs. Collins, you're on in 15 minutes. Let's get you mic'd up." As I was taken to the side of the set, I caught my reflection in a monitor. A stylish, confident-looking woman who hardly resembled the Barbara Collins who had sat alone on her 70th birthday. The outward change was remarkable, but the real transformation was what truly mattered: regaining my voice, my boundaries, and my sense of self. 3 minutes, the production assistant announced, adjusting my microphone pack. "Do you have any questions before we start?" I shook my head, focusing on steadying my breath as the anchors finished talking about popular summer travel spots. The female anchor, Melissa Chen, was going to interview me. She looked in my direction with a gentle, encouraging smile while a makeup artist fixed her already flawless look during the commercial break. Just 30 seconds. I closed my eyes for a moment to gather my thoughts. When I opened them, the red light on the camera was shining, and Melissa turned toward the lens with confidence and ease. Our next guest understands well the struggles many women experience as they get older: feeling unseen, being overlooked, and sometimes even financial manipulation by those close to them. Her new book, The Invisible Woman's Revolution: Reclaiming Your Power After 60, has started an important national discussion about personal boundaries and self-respect. Please welcome Barbara Collins. I entered this set with as much calm as I could muster, smiling softly as I took my seat opposite Melissa. "Barbara, thank you for joining us this morning," she greeted warmly. "Thank you for having me," I replied, my voice steadier than I truly felt. "Your journey to becoming what social media now calls Boundary Barbara started with a painful family situation," Melissa continued. "Without going into private details, can you share what finally pushed you to make such a significant change in your relationships?" I gently touched the charm on my bracelet, drawing comfort from the connection to Jennifer and Stephanie. I began, it was my 70th birthday, a day when I found myself alone, realizing family members had used my credit card without asking to pay for a luxury vacation. "That must have been very upsetting," Melissa said softly. "It was the result of many years of allowing unhealthy patterns," I explained. "I had allowed myself to be seen as a financial resource rather than a person deserving respect. That birthday became the moment when I finally decided enough was enough. That decision changed everything." Melissa acknowledged this, though not immediately or without difficulty. I explained that setting boundaries isn't about punishing others. It's about honoring yourself enough to expect respectful treatment. For me, it meant creating clear conditions to rebuild relationships on healthier terms. The interview went more smoothly than I had anticipated. Melissa inquired about practical steps women can take to regain their financial independence, about the emotional hurdles of standing up to family members, and about the reaction from women in similar situations to my message. One of the most meaningful points she noted is that you were 70 years old when you made this personal transformation. What would you say to women who feel it is too late to change their circumstances? That question stayed with me. I would tell them that it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be. Every morning we wake up presents another chance to rewrite our story. I leaned slightly forward, speaking not just to Melissa, but to the unseen viewers I imagine beyond the cameras. Age is not a limit, it is an advantage. We carry wisdom, perspective, and strength that we didn't have in our younger years. Why not use those qualities to build the life we truly deserve? Melissa softly replied, "Beautiful." Then, turning to the camera, she announced that Barbara Collins' book, The Invisible Woman's Revolution, will be released next week. Thank you for sharing your inspiring journey with us this morning. Thank you for the opportunity, I replied. As the segment ended, the lights dimmed slightly and the commercial started. Melissa took off her microphone and gave my hand a warm shake. That was wonderful, Barbara. Authentic and powerful. Your book will truly help many women. I hope so, I replied, still feeling a bit overwhelmed by how surreal everything seemed. As I was taken backstage, the production assistant handed me my phone. It's been ringing nonstop during your segment, she said. 27 text messages, 43 emails, alerts from social media accounts I rarely checked, and a voicemail from Gordon. Barbara, you were wonderful. Call me as soon as possible. The publisher is already talking about a second printing before the first copy is even out. I was guided into a waiting car that would take me back to the hotel. As we moved through Manhattan's morning traffic, I looked through my messages. Grace, neighbors, church friends, former co-workers, everyone watched and sent their congratulations. Then I saw a message from an unknown number that made my heart skip a beat. Mrs. Mrs. Collins, you don't know me, but I'm the hotel manager from Hawaii. I just wanted to share that I watched you this morning and was deeply touched by how you turned a difficult situation into something meaningful. I wish you continued success. Marcus Reeves, the manager who had called security on my daughters 3 months ago, surprisingly managed to find my number and offered words of encouragement. The sense of completion nearly overwhelmed me. Later, in my hotel room, I finally called my daughters on a video chat. They appeared together on my screen, seemingly watching from Jennifer's apartment. Mom, you were amazing, Stephanie said excitedly. She was so confident and articulate, I got goosebumps. Jennifer, as calm and steady as ever, nodded in agreement. You truly exceeded expectations. Your words were clear and persuasive, and you handled everything about what happened without revealing too much. Thank you for that. I showed them the bracelet, holding up my wrist, so they could see I was wearing it. It gave me strength just when I needed it most. That was Stephanie's idea, Jennifer admitted, though I was the one who found the jeweler. I watched their teamwork with a smile, noticing how their relationship seemed to be improving. Stephanie glanced at her sister and said, "We've been talking about what will happen once the 6-month probation period ends next month." My heart tightened at that. We had never openly discussed what would occur after they met my conditions, whether financial support would continue or if the trust distributions would be unfrozen. I gently prompted. Jennifer straightened her shoulders. We believe the current arrangement should stay in place. The financial counseling has been very helpful. For the first time in my adult life, I've started building an emergency fund. And I've been living within my means for 3 straight months, Stephanie added proudly. It has been difficult, but also, I don't know, enlightening about what truly matters. I asked, what about the trust distributions? Those quarterly payments had been a major part of their income for many years. The sisters looked at each other thoughtfully. We've discussed it, Jennifer said carefully, and we believe those funds might be better used elsewhere for now. Stephanie nodded in agreement. Maybe towards your foundation idea, the one aimed at helping elderly victims of financial abuse, she suggested. We could assist in setting it up, maybe even volunteer some of our time. Their suggestion, coming from them rather than being imposed by me, left me momentarily speechless. Are you certain? Those distributions are quite significant, I asked. We are sure, Jennifer confirmed confidently. We need to become completely independent. No safety nets, no bailouts. It's the only way we can truly make a change. I studied the faces on my screen. looking for any signs of manipulation or hidden motives. Instead, I saw only determination and a newfound maturity that both broke my heart and helped mend it. I'm proud of both of you, I finally said. This decision couldn't have been easy. Easier than you might think, Stephanie replied with a gentle smile. It turns out that there is a sense of strength in covering your own expenses. Who would have guessed? After we ended our call, I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, reflecting on the significance of the morning's events, the television appearance, the manager's surprising message, and my daughter's choice to continue their financial independence. 3 months ago, I'd gone unnoticed, a useful but easily forgotten resource. Today, I was seen not only by millions of television viewers, but more importantly, by my own family. In turn, they were also beginning to see me in new ways. Not as the entitled adults who had taken advantage of my kindness, but as women discovering their own way toward honesty and independence. My phone rang again. It was Diane from the publishing house. Barbara, congratulations on a wonderful interview. I have some exciting news to share. Based on early feedback, we are speeding up the second printing of your book, and there's more. We want to explore a possible follow up that focuses specifically on the financial relationship between mothers and daughters. The pre orders are already surpassing our most hopeful estimates. As she continued to describe opportunities like a book tour, speaking events, and potential collaborations with women's organizations, I looked out at the New York skyline. At 70 years old, I wasn't ending my story. I was starting a whole new chapter. And perhaps for the first time since Richard's passing, I truly felt alive and energized. I was no longer defined by my relationships with others, but by my own voice, my own purpose, and my reclaimed strength. The invisible woman was no longer hidden. She was shining brightly. 8 months after my daughter stole my credit card on my 70th birthday, I stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of the Portland Hilton, surrounded by a sea of attentive faces. Women of all ages filled the room, mostly those with silver hair, lines of experience softly visible around their eyes, and expressions of recognition as I shared my story. I explained that financial independence is not only about money. My voice carried a confidence that still caught me by surprise at times. It's about reclaiming your sense of worth after years of focusing on everyone else's needs. It's about remembering that you matter, not only as a mother, grandmother, or caregiver, but as a woman with her own dreams and skills and wisdom. My book tour took me to 12 cities in as many weeks. The publisher was amazed by the warm response. The venues were often filled well beyond their capacity. Media coverage grew beyond morning shows to include major newspapers and magazines. Boundary Barbara Sparks National Movement, one headline announced. Another described my book as the Silent Generations Manifesto for Visibility. The discomfort of the attention sometimes persisted, but I had learned to concentrate on the message rather than the messenger, on the women discovering their voice rather than on my own unexpected platform. As I finished my formal remarks and invited questions, a woman in the third row raised her hand. She looked to be in her mid-60s, dressed elegantly, yet her hands trembled slightly as she held the microphone. "Mrs. Collins, your book changed my life," she started, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've been supporting my son financially for 15 years, paying his mortgage, his car payments, and even his vacations. After reading your story, I finally told him no more." She paused, tears welling in her eyes. "He hasn't spoken to me in 6 weeks. Did I do the right thing? Will he ever come back?" The raw pain in her question filled the room. I moved away from behind the podium, stepping toward the edge of the stage to speak to her directly. "What is your name?" I asked softly. "Margaret," she replied. "Margaret, first, I want to acknowledge how much courage it took to make that choice. You've done the right thing, not only for yourself, but also for your son in the long run." I looked toward the back of the room, where Jennifer and Stephanie were quietly watching. "I can't guarantee that your son will respond the same way my daughters eventually did. Everyone's path is different. But I can tell you this: what you've lost isn't a healthy relationship. It's a pattern of dependence that kept both of you from truly living your own lives." Margaret nodded, wiping away tears. "And there's one more thing I want to say. You're not alone in this room. Look around you. Every woman here has her own story of giving until it wears her out, of wondering if setting boundaries means she's abandoning her loved ones. We are walking this journey together. A soft murmur of agreement spread through the group. Several women reached out and gently touched Margaret's shoulder, showing support. The rest of the Q&A session unfolded in a similar manner. Women shared heartfelt stories of being financially exploited by adult children, siblings, or partners. Others offered words of encouragement from their own experiences of regaining independence. When the official part of the event ended, I stayed at a table to sign books and briefly chat with each person who came over. Some simply wanted to say thank you. Others needed a moment of connection with someone who truly understood their struggles. All of them seemed to leave feeling a little stronger, as if the simple act of recognizing their worth was a gift they could carry home. As the line gradually faded, my daughters approached the signing table. They had come all the way from Portland just for this occasion, which was the final stop of my tour and felt like a special homecoming. "You were wonderful, Mom," Stephanie said with a warm hug. "That woman, Margaret, I wanted to tell her that things can improve, that relationships can recover once boundaries are established. Perhaps you should try," I suggested. "She is still standing near the refreshment table. Your point of view might matter more to her than mine." Stephanie looked toward Margaret, then nodded. "I think I will." She squeezed my hand before walking away. Jennifer stayed behind, helping me gather my notes and the small gifts some attendees had pressed into my hands: cards, bookmarks, and even a hand-knitted scarf from a woman who said my book had given her warmth during her coldest moments. 9 months ago, if someone had told me my mother would become a national advocate for women's financial independence, I would have thought they were hallucinating, Jennifer said, her voice light, but her eyes serious. "Yes, here we are. Here we are indeed," I agreed, watching Stephanie engage in lively conversation with Margaret across the room. "How are you feeling about all of this?" Jennifer thought about the question carefully, feeling a sense of pride and humility. Sometimes she still felt a bit embarrassed when someone recognized her name and asked if she was that Jennifer. She offered a gentle, genuine smile, grateful for the wake-up call we needed, even if it arrived through hotel security and viral attention. I reached out and touched her hand. "And how are things going with the financial counselor?" She admitted it was an ongoing process. "I still have difficult days, especially when I get stressed and tend to spend impulsively. But I haven't asked anyone for money in 9 months, and I have managed to save enough to cover 3 months of expenses in an emergency." "Baby steps," I said, recognizing how important this progress was for Jennifer, who had always lived paycheck to paycheck despite earning a good income. As we were about to leave, the event coordinator approached us with a refined envelope. "This was delivered to you during the event, Mrs. Collins." The messenger explained that it was important. Inside was an invitation printed on thick cardstock. "The Regional Association of Financial Advisors requests the honor of your presence at their annual gala this Saturday evening, where you will receive the Eleanor Roosevelt Award for Empowerment." Jennifer said, after reading over my shoulder, that it was another addition to my collection of honors. "Your credenza is nearly full," she remarked with a teasing smile. I returned her smile, knowing that the awards and recognitions I had received in recent months meant less to me than the real changes happening in my family and the women I had been able to support. I checked the date, this Saturday's event. Jennifer then reminded me, "That's your birthday," she said. "You'll be 71. We both knew my birthday well. It was the day that had set everything in motion, the forgotten celebration of last year, which led to my daughter's theft, my awakening, and this series of transformations that followed. "We actually have plans for your birthday," Stephanie announced, returning to us after her talk with Margaret. "If you're willing to skip the fancy gala," I raised an eyebrow. "What kind of plans?" I asked, curious. "It's a surprise," Jennifer replied, with an uncommon sense of playfulness. "But I promise it doesn't involve stolen credit cards, tropical trips, or social media posts from those destinations," Stephanie added with a self-deprecating smile. The sisters exchanged a look that hinted at detailed plans and shared secrets, a reassuring sign of healing in their once competitive relationship. "All right," I said cautiously. "No gala birthday surprise then." When Saturday came, I half expected something grand, given my daughter's naturally dramatic personality. Instead, Jennifer arrived in her sensible, smaller car, The luxury SUV had been sold to help her pay off debts and took me to my favorite park, overlooking the Willamette River. There, in a quiet picnic spot, I gathered with those closest to me, Stephanie, Gordon, Grace, and a few friends from church. A simple banner announced, "Happy 71st birthday, Barbara," and a modest cake sat in the center of the table, decorated kindly. We had considered planning something more elaborate, Jennifer said as we moved closer. But then we realized that what you would value most is spending quality time with people who truly care about you. The thoughtfulness behind this small act, which acknowledged my preference for meaningful moments rather than grand events, touched me deeply. As we sat around the picnic table, Stephanie cleared her throat. "Mom, before we eat, we have something to share," she said. Jennifer nodded and reached into her purse, pulling out an envelope similar to the one that had carried the gala invitation. "This is your real birthday gift." Inside, I found legal paper with a familiar letterhead, Gordon's law firm. As I looked over the documents, my breath caught. I read aloud the name of the Barbara Collins Foundation for Financial Dignity. It was started with an initial endowment, and I stared in surprise at the amount listed. Jennifer explained that it was the entire sum we owed you, plus interest. "We've both been working extra jobs for months to make this happen, and we set it up as a proper nonprofit organization," Stephanie added. "Of course, with you serving as the chairperson, the foundation will offer education and resources specifically for older women who are at risk of financial exploitation, especially by family members." Gordon smiled across the table. "They approached me with the idea 3 months ago. We've been working on it ever since, getting the legal structure in place, crafting a mission statement, developing a strategic plan. They've done everything correctly, Barbara." I looked from the documents to my daughter's faces, seeing no sign of their past sense of entitlement or manipulation. Instead, I saw two women who had traveled their own challenging path alongside mine. From entitled takers to genuine givers, this was a moment when I struggled to find words that truly fit. It was the most meaningful gift I could have imagined. "There's more," Stephanie said, pulling out a folder. "We have already established partnerships with 3 senior centers and 2 community colleges to offer workshops, and we've enlisted volunteers who act as financial advisors, willing to provide free consultations. The Foundation's first major event is already planned," Jennifer added. "It's a conference called Invisible No More Financial Empowerment After 60. We've gained sponsorships that help keep registration fees low." As they continued sharing their plans and the practical steps they'd taken to turn my experience into a resource for others, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. My daughters had not only acknowledged their past actions, they had transformed that chapter into something meaningful and redemptive. The birthday celebration went on with cake, conversations, laughter, and a few tears. As the afternoon shadows stretched across the park, I sat slightly apart, observing my newly arranged family with a feeling of awe. Grace came and sat beside me on the bench and sat beside me. She remarked how different everything was from last year's birthday. I agreed wholeheartedly. She softly added that Richard would be proud, not just of my achievements, but also of the women my daughters are becoming. I nodded, feeling his spirit nearby, as I often did during meaningful moments. The most difficult part, I admitted, was believing I was worth more. After many years of putting everyone else's needs before my own, it almost felt selfish to focus on my self-respect. Then Grace prompted me to notice how Jennifer and Stephanie were working together to pack up our picnic, their interaction easy and supportive in a way I had rarely seen before. I responded, "Now I understand that dignity isn't something you earn or deserve, it's something you claim. And by claiming it for myself, I somehow helped my daughters feel it too." Grace gently patted my hand. "From stealing credit cards to creating a nonprofit foundation in just 1 year. Not bad for a woman who thought her meaningful life was behind her at 70. I chuckled at her straightforward honesty. Not bad at all. As we got ready to leave, Stephanie came over with my purse and jacket. "One more thing, Mom. We've arranged a spa day for you tomorrow. Massage, facial, the whole package. And to ease your worries about the cost, it's all within our budget. No credit cards were harmed in celebrating this birthday." The soft, self-deprecating tone in her voice, acknowledging past mistakes without shame or defensiveness, was perhaps the clearest sign of her growth. "Thank you," I simply said, holding her close for everything she had become. On the drive home with Jennifer, I watched Portland's familiar scenery pass by outside the window. So much had changed in a year, yet the city felt the same. A reminder that change often takes place inside us before it appears in the world around us. I never thanked you properly, Jennifer suddenly said, breaking the quiet comfort. For what? For having the courage to say no, for allowing us to face the consequences. She kept her eyes on the road, but her voice carried an unusual vulnerability. It would have been simpler to continue enabling us to keep everything the same. Easier at the moment, I admitted, but it would have been damaging in the long run for all of us. She nodded thoughtfully. I sometimes think about that hotel manager and how humiliating it was to be treated like criminals. How entitled we felt to your money, your support, and your endless generosity. She cast a brief look my way. That version of myself now seems like a stranger. Growth often feels that way, I noted. The person we once were becomes unrecognizable to who we are becoming. As Jennifer arrived and parked in my driveway, I saw my garden blooming beautifully in the warm evening light. The roses Richard had planted were now thriving under my care. I had added new varieties, creating a colorful and fragrant display. Just like my life, the garden had grown and changed, honoring what had come before while making space for new growth and future possibilities. Happy birthday, Mom, Jennifer said as I collected my belongings. See you tomorrow at the foundation meeting at 9 no at Gordon's office. I nodded, promising to be there, feeling proud that my daughter was planning something that involved responsibility and kindness instead of self-interest. Inside my humble home, the house I chose to keep despite being able to afford more, I set down my purse and took off my shoes with a peaceful sigh. On the mantel, Richard's photo seemed to smile with a special warmth. You were right, I told his image, about the girls needing boundaries, about me needing to stand up for myself, about everything really. 1 year ago, I was a woman held back by others' expectations and my own hesitation to take up space. Today, I stand confidently in my truth, not just for myself, but for the many women who are finding their own strength through my story. At 71, my life was not slowing down. It was growing in ways I could never have expected. The theft of my credit card that had broken my heart on my 70th birthday eventually became a path to deeper healing than I had thought possible. And through that healing, messy, difficult, and still ongoing, I learned what it truly means to be visible, not just noticed, but understood. Not only appreciated for what I can give, but respected for who I am. The invisible woman had stepped into the light, and to her surprise, she realized she had been radiant all along. Exactly 1 year after I blocked my daughter's stolen credit card in Hawaii, I stood in front of a full audience at Portland Community College. Behind me, a banner read The Invisible Woman's Revolution, first annual conference on financial dignity after 60. Nearly 300 women filled the seats, some accompanied by daughters or friends, others alone, but quickly forming connections with those nearby. I welcome everyone, my voice calm and confident, something that no longer surprised me. A year ago today, I made a choice that changed everything. I chose dignity over dependence, boundaries over exploitation, self-respect over invisibility. As I shared the familiar details of my story, I saw many women nodding in understanding, while others dabbed at tears. A few reached out to hold the hands of daughters sitting beside them. Some did so in solidarity, others perhaps in apology or newfound understanding. Today isn't about my journey, I said. It's about yours. Every woman present has her own story of becoming invisible, of having her worth diminished, her boundaries crossed, or her generosity taken advantage of. This conference aims to provide you with practical tools to help you regain control of your financial and personal lives. I introduced our keynote speaker, a well-known financial advisor who specializes in promoting women's economic security, then took my place in the front row between Jennifer and Stephanie. Both women had taken personal days from work to assist with organizing the event, managing everything from registration to the workshop timetable. Nervous, Jennifer whispered as applause greeted the speaker. I reassured her, feeling grateful. A year ago, I never would have imagined being here. Throughout the day, I attended different sessions. There was a workshop on recognizing financial manipulation, a panel discussion with women who had successfully escaped financially abusive situations, and practical classes on budgeting and investing after 60. All the resources we provided, materials and boxed lunches served in the college courtyard, were completely free of charge, thanks to the solid foundation behind this event. During the lunch break, I was approached by a woman holding my book, its pages marked with bright, sticky notes. "Mrs. Collins," she began hesitantly, "I want to thank you. Your story gave me courage when I needed it most." "I'm so happy to hear that," I responded warmly. "What's your name?" "Ellen Martinez. I'm 73. She straightened her shoulders with clear pride. "3 months ago, I finally told my son he couldn't stay in my guest house anymore. He's 46 and fully capable of supporting himself," I said, understanding. She nodded. "He didn't speak to me for weeks, called me heartless, and said I was choosing money over family." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "But last week he signed a lease for his own apartment, and yesterday he brought me flowers and told me I'm sorry." Her voice caught. "He said he was sorry for taking advantage of me for so long." I gently squeezed her hand. "How wonderful it is that he arrived at that understanding," Ellen said. "It's because I remained steady," she explained. "Your book helped me realize that my efforts to enable him weren't truly helping. Sometimes genuine love means knowing when to say no." As she moved away, I noticed Stephanie in the midst of a lively conversation with a group of younger women, daughters who had come with their mothers to the conference. From her animated gestures and their focused expressions, I could see she was sharing our family's story from her point of view. Stephanie had unexpectedly become a voice for adult children, learning to become independent. Her volunteer work at the senior center had grown into a part-time paid role, coordinating programs that brought different generations together. She had even begun writing a blog called Recovering Financial Dependent, which had gained quite a lot of attention. Jennifer's personal transformation had been just as meaningful, though it showed in a different way, always more reserved than her sister. She focused her marketing skills on the foundation's outreach efforts. The strategic plan she put in place attracted many generous donors, helping us to grow our programs beyond what we had initially expected. More importantly, both daughters now support themselves entirely. The trust distributions are still directed to the foundation by their choice, not by my instruction. Jennifer has greatly reduced her lifestyle. She moved from a luxury downtown condo to a simple apartment closer to her workplace. Stephanie now shares an apartment with a roommate to split expenses, something she would have thought unnecessary a year earlier. Our relationships have also changed. The compulsory therapy sessions ended months ago, but we still meet regularly, sometimes just for dinner, other times to discuss work related to the foundation. The formal manner that marked our early reconciliation gradually faded, replaced by a genuine connection based on mutual respect rather than financial reliance. As the conference resumed in the afternoon, I quietly stepped away to a peaceful spot on campus. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my publisher, probably about the paperback coming out next month, and an email from Good Morning America asking for a follow-up interview for their Where Are They Now segment. The attention still sometimes felt surreal. Boundary Barbara had transformed from a viral video subject into a recognized advocate for women's financial dignity. My book had stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for 15 weeks. I had been quoted in articles on economic abuse, appeared in a documentary about women's financial independence, and been named to several lists of women over 60 making a difference. None of it had been planned or sought. All of this began with a clear moment on my 70th birthday, when I realized I deserved more than being used under the guise of family duty. As I was getting ready to head back to the conference, I received a text message from Grace. It read, "Local news is covering your event. Just saw you on Channel 8. I felt a swell of pride for my well-known friend. I smiled at her excitement. The media attention was nice, but it was not what truly mattered. What counted most were women like Ellen Martinez, who were finding their voices, regaining their dignity, and redefining their relationships in healthier ways. The afternoon ended with a panel discussion that included financial counselors, legal experts, and women sharing their stories of economic renewal. As the moderator, I guided the talk towards practical steps that anyone could take right away, no matter their current situation. The path to financial dignity is about more than just accumulating wealth. One panelist, a retired teacher who recently stopped financially supporting several adult children, explained it's about gaining independence, the ability to make decisions based on your personal needs and values rather than on others' expectations or demands. Another panelist, a financial advisor who works mainly with senior women, added that it's never too late to start. I have clients who begin investing in their 70s and 80s. The important question isn't why bother at my age, but why not take full ownership of what's left of my life? As the panel wrapped up amidst enthusiastic applause, I invited everyone to a closing reception in the college atrium. There, over light refreshments and casual conversations, I watched new connections form among women who had arrived as strangers. Phone numbers exchanged, support networks created, resources shared. Jennifer came over to my side, holding a clipboard. Everything's going smoothly, she said. We already have 30 names on the list for next year's conference. Next year, I repeated, the idea still feels a bit surprising. I guess it has become an annual tradition. More than that, she responded, it's turning into a movement. She wasn't wrong. The effects of my initial boundary setting had grown well beyond our family, reaching lives all across the country. Women who had spent many years staying in the background were now stepping forward, claiming their space, and demanding respect. Did you ever imagine this? I asked, pointing toward the room filled with lively conversations and a new sense of unity. Jennifer shook her head. Honestly, a year ago, I was more worried about how to explain to my friends why security had to escort me out of a luxury hotel. She offered a modest smile. Talk about missing the bigger picture. As the event came to a close, Stephanie joined us, along with Ellen Martinez and several other women eager to share their experiences. I listened as they shared their journeys of discovering their self-worth, taking steps toward financial independence, and witnessing the changes in their family relationships. The most difficult part, one woman admitted, is the feeling of guilt. I spent many years thinking that saying no was selfish and that my needs were less important than everyone else's. I told her I understood completely. That's why having a strong community is so vital. We need to support each other in remembering that dignity isn't selfishness, that setting boundaries isn't rejection, and that we matter, not only for what we give, but also simply for who we are. As the last participants left, my daughters and I stayed behind to help with the cleanup and to thank the volunteers. The entire conference was their idea, a project they envisioned, planned, and carried out as a gift to me and to the women whose lives my story had reached. I told them, as we gathered our things, that they had created something extraordinary here. I couldn't be more proud of them. We had a wonderful teacher, Stephanie answered, her face unusually serious. Not just in how you handled the Hawaii situation, but in how you've lived this past year with dignity, purpose, and kindness despite everything we put you through. Jennifer nodded in agreement. You could have simply cut us out of your life and moved forward. Instead, you showed us a way to find redemption. It was tough, but possible. That is true love. Their words touched me deeply. The journey had indeed been hard for all of us. Painful truths, difficult realizations, and the breaking down of long-standing patterns. But the women standing before me now looked very different from the entitled daughters who had stolen my credit card a year before. As we left the campus, the setting sun bathed Portland in a warm, golden glow. My daughters headed to their cars, promising to meet for our usual Sunday dinner in 2 days. I paused for a moment, watching them walk away, independent women who had found their own way after years of relying on me. A quote from my book came to mind, words I had written during those early uncertain days of setting boundaries. The greatest gift we can offer our children is not endless support, but the belief and expectation that they can support themselves. The past year had shown the truth of that statement more clearly than I could have ever imagined. That evening at home, I settled into Richard's old armchair with a cup of tea, reflecting on the day's events. On the coffee table, there was a framed photograph taken on my 71st birthday, Jennifer, Stephanie, and I laughing together in the park. Genuine happiness shining through our smiles. Next to it was an advanced copy of my second book, scheduled for release in 3 months, titled Beyond Boundaries Rebuilding Relationships After Financial Dependence. My phone buzzed with a message from Gordon. Congratulations on a successful conference. Richard would be bursting with pride. I smiled, knowing it was true. My late husband had always seen more in me than I saw in myself. He recognized a strength and resilience I had only fully discovered over the past year. We did it, Richard, I whispered, honoring his memory. We raised daughters who could find their way back to integrity, even after losing their path. And I finally found my voice, even after decades of silence. As night fell outside my window, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey that had started with betrayal and heartbreak on my 70th birthday had transformed not only my life, but also the lives of many others. The pain was necessary. The catalyst for change had long been awaited. Now at 71, I was no longer merely visible. I was luminous. A woman standing fully in her power, surrounded by daughters who had discovered their own strength, offering light to others still struggling in shadows. The silent revolution of women continued to grow far beyond my own story. Women who had spent years diminishing themselves were now reclaiming their worth, their voices, and their rightful places. I was privileged to witness their awakening and to share in their journey toward the dignity we all deserve. That night, as I got ready for bed, I paused before my mirror. I saw not only the silver-haired woman looking back, but also everything she stood for. Resilience, wisdom, and the bravery to start anew, regardless of age or life circumstances. I softly told my reflection, "Happy anniversary." Here's to setting boundaries, to maintaining dignity, and to new beginnings that shine brighter than the past. Deep in my heart, I felt Richard's warm smile in response. This is the end. If this story touched your soul or encouraged you to protect your dignity by setting boundaries, please subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more stories like this. And I'd love to hear in the comments where you're watching from. Your city may be small, but your bravery is immense.